And we are live. Welcome to the Well Move Well radio show and the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. Joe, it's great to see you.
Great to see you too, mate.
Two podcast hosts, so I should almost ask you to do your intro. But bro, I'm really excited about this one. We can actually have a real conversation. We were just saying before offline, and it's just great to catch up. I'm honoured to be able to speak to the best people in the world of what they do, but I'm super honoured to have technology that allows me to connect with a friend that changed my life many years ago, and we still have that connection.
Oh, that's great to hear, mate. Very humbling to hear, and yeah, very privileged to be on your podcast and on this show and to reconnect with you, brother. It's been a long time.
Where are you now? I mean, I know you're in New Zealand, but we didn't ask before. Whereabouts are you now?
Yes, I'm in Pukekohe, in Auckland. The eventual plan is to get back to the East Coast in Gisborne, where I was born and raised. But whenever that happens, that happens. But right now, my family and I are here in Pukekohe, so not far, just down the road from Papakura.
Yeah, I know it well, man. I know it well. Many times. Well, I'm over in Perth. It's about 1 million degrees and rising. How hard was it for you getting used to the heat over here, man?
In Perth?
Yeah,
it took probably the first couple of summers. It took a little bit of time to get used to the heat, and then once we sort of acclimatized, it was our aircon never really went on. One, because my wife likes to try to save money, and then two, we just used the pedestal fan, and we were pretty close to the beach, so we would travel to the beach fairly regularly. So that was good. So how are you finding it though? How are you adjusting, or how have you adjusted? I should say probably.
I've got a story about that. I'm full of stories apparently. When I first came here, I fell into scaffolding, as I think just about every Kiwi did.
Right. Yeah.
And I came here, I think it was February. And it was 42 degrees.
Would have still been, yeah.
And us being in Timor and that we used to the heat, but coming from New Zealand straight into this, I think I was going through like 10 litres of water a day. It was just pouring out of me.
I can relate, yeah, man. I imagine. Whereabouts were you up north in the Pilbara and stuff at that time, or in Perth itself?
No, that's another story. So I was in the squadron, sitting on my trunk. Reading my paycheck at $810 a fortnight, and one of the boys texted me, Tokua Mararai texted me and said, "Hey, I'm over here in Perth. I'm making 150 grand a year." That doesn't make sense. But long story was.
How?
Yeah, well, $150,000, that's more than the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And he really was. I did the numbers and I came over here. He told me, come to Perth, I'll get you a job. I landed here in Perth, as you know, a city. Turns out he's like in the bush somewhere in Kalgoorlie, 400 Ks away or something. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I didn't come here to go in the bush. So I was in Perth in the city scaffolding, and then as soon as, like within 3 days, I rang the SWAT team here. It's the easiest way for people to understand.
Yeah.
Rang the TRG guys, said, "Hey, can I come and play with you guys? Because I'm here and this sucks." And I applied for they said you got to be a cop, so I applied for the police force, and I was in the police academy 6 months later.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And what was that process like for you? Like going through that their selection or whatever it was, or
pretty eye-opening. Because, our special forces journeys was vastly different, yours and mine, but still, once you're there, the mindset's the same.
Yeah.
They don't have that drive. It was very hard. It was nice to be still in a structured environment, but they don't have that unrelenting pursuit of excellence. So I found that difficult. That caused a discord amongst some of us, but there was some Gulf War veterans there, and we all had the same mindset. But it was interesting police. I loved it. It was a new learning curve, learning laws, learning a language. The tactical stuff was beautiful. I loved, all the instructors knew my background, and I just loved being able to excel at that.
Yeah.
Awesome. I hope that's not being boasty, but bringing my skill set and doing what they asked of me, and maybe be able to think outside the box with it, which is what you got to do as a police officer. You're not going to be on the trigger all the time. You really got to use your brain. And it was really interesting. The law was great. The selection process for it was just organic, I think, is the best word I could use.
Yeah. And how many, was there large numbers on that selection, on that course?
You don't really know how many people apply, but once we got in, there was 2 classes of 26 people.
Oh, so, wow, pretty decent numbers.
Yeah, it is. It's funny you say it now, thinking back. I guess as we get older, you forget, but I think on the 3rd day, a woman quit the course. She was a nurse, and I think a 43-year-old female, and she just wasn't for her. She didn't realize that bad people were going to say unkind things to her.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So she quit on day 3, but no, it's great. Got some good friends. Watched some people grow through it. Turn from girls and boys into grown-ups, into adults through it. And yeah,
oh, sorry, no, Karen. I was going to ask, how long is that selection?
6 months. 6 months, and it was police.
6 months.
It was police academy.
Oh, police academy. So, did you have any? What's the names? Hightower and those sort of people come to mind?
Oh man, I had a couple. I can't actually say publicly. There was a physical training instructor, for instance.
Crack up. Oh man, that sounds cool. That's awesome. That's good. Really good to hear, and good to hear that. So you're not doing that now, though, right? Or are you still connected in some way, or?
No. You do enjoy the policing, but I got into the fire brigade a couple of years after. So I've been a firefighter for 10 years now.
Man, awesome. And so you're based in Wembley Downs there, or are you based?
We live in Wembley Downs. My fire station's Claremont Fire Station.
Claremont, gotcha.
Great crew of guys. It's very lucky with the transition that we might get into down the track, to transition to a small group of like-minded individuals.
Yeah, awesome, man. Oh, good for you. That's great to hear.
But what about you, Joe? You know, I came over to Perth. I knew you were here. I heard you had the Mill Gym, and we both interviewed Nick there, which was great.
Yeah.
Pretty much from what I gather, you saw the Jim Jones stuff, the 300 movie trainer, and the Mill Gym. I was like, what are you up to, man?
Yeah. So I remember I was on the circuit at the time, prior to coming across Jim Jones, working with a few of the guys that you would know from the group back home. We're on television media contracts, looking after television media in and out of the Middle East and stuff predominantly at the time. And then one of the guys actually put me onto, so we were training pretty regularly when we had downtime and stuff there. And he goes, oh, you should check this out. And he put me onto Jim Jones on the website. And it caught my attention straight away. It was black is cool, all that sort of stuff. It was black and white imagery. The wording that was used was very to the point and direct and open and honest and raw. I thought some of the things that I remember were, there's no comfortable place to sit. There are no mirrors, and that sort of stuff straight away just resonated with me. And so then I read more. And then I saw that you had to apply to go there and to have the opportunity to train there. And I thought, man, that just really fired me up. So I ended up typing out an application, so to speak, or you just had to send an email. You had to follow the instructions, put in the subject heading candidate, blah, blah, blah. So I put that in there. And then I ended up typing out this quite a lengthy email to Mark Twight and to the team there, and to ask permission if I could come and train there at the gym. Thankfully, long story short, they said yes. My intention was to go over and attend and participate in a 2-day seminar. I asked if I could do the 2-day seminar and then stay on for another month and just train with the guys, and they gladly said yes, or thankfully for me said yes. So I went from, once it was all sorted, I did a rotation back to Perth, went back because the dates were set, and so it was for February in 2008, right in the middle of winter. Now, I didn't do any research properly before I went. So I went right from the middle of like heat and summer in Baghdad on the plane, and then straight over to Utah in my shorts and t-shirt in a backpack and some training gears. And it was quite funny when I got there. I flew to Houston, transitioned from there, then to Utah, were the connecting flights that I remember. And then I got out, was waiting for my baggage. Everybody was all rugged up. Inside the terminal wasn't too bad. But but I didn't know what it was going to be like outside. So there were people there waiting for their bags. There was a lady come up to me and she goes, "You're not from around here, are you?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." She goes, "What are you, an Eskimo?" And I just laughed. I said, "No, just from New Zealand." She goes, "Is it cold there?" And I said, "Oh yeah, it can get cold." And then anyway, I didn't realize, I went outside and there was a taxi rank and there was a long queue and there were these people. There's about 5 or 6 people standing in the line, and man, that cold just hit me straight away. And I was freezing. So I stood in the back of the line trying to pretend I'm not cold, just moving around. And then these people just looked back and they were kind enough and they said, "Do you want the next taxi?" And I was like, "Yes, please." So they let me go to the front of the line. I hopped in the taxi and then got taken to the hotel that I was staying at. But the time there at Jim Jones was fantastic. Mark Twight was awesome. Rob Maximus McDonald, great guy, great team. Mark's wife was fantastic. Everybody, that whole environment, was almost like going on selection. It was what I expected, but better. And then when I got to Jim Jones, it was what I expected, but better again. So everybody was great. The environment was exactly how they pictured it. It was a small little warehouse. Everything was tightly cramped, and it was just a place of work, sweating and suffering together for a like-minded cause, whatever that was. And so many of the athletes and stuff that were there with Mark training under him were either climbers or BJJ or mixed martial arts practitioners or military or that sort of stuff. And when he wasn't doing that, he was obviously training celebrities for movie roles and stuff like that. So the Superman guy and Hugh Jackman for Wolverine roles, and obviously Gerard Butler and the other crew from 300, which was, I guess, where the name really started to become more to light in terms of what he'd done. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. And it really, you painted a picture. It sounds like exactly what the mill gym is. Small, cramped, shared pain.
Yeah, definitely. And just from that whole experience, I was open with Mark when I got there. And as we progressed, did the seminar, then stayed and just trained, rocked up every day, got to train with them and the team members there. And we got to talking, and I just was picking his brain. I said, "Hey, what would it take to, I'd love to set something like this back up in Perth in Australia. I think there's a market for it." In the context, wasn't thinking commercially or monetary wise, but I was thinking more of the demographics of people that might be interested in coming and training there, and men and women from all walks of life. And he was really supportive. So I just kept asking him more questions. "Hey, would it be all right if we somehow, I would acknowledge you and the Jim Jones and how it's played a pivotal part in the desire to want to create this thing. And I've got some people in mind back in Perth that I absolutely trust and would love to set this up with." He was fully supportive, on board with it. And and then we just sort of went from there. He actually, at one stage, it was nice. I was actually hoping it would happen, but it didn't. But he says, he asked me what I was doing at a particular time of the year. I think it might have been later on in March or April of that same year. And I said, "Oh, as far as I know, not too much. I'll just be traveling in and out of the Middle East for work and that sort of stuff." And he goes, "Oh, well, if you're interested, we've got some work happening with Hugh Jackman for a Wolverine piece that he was doing." And I was like, "Bro, I'm keen as, yeah." I'd love to come along, either train alongside, learn, observe, not necessarily have to be the trainer, but train alongside. And he goes, "Yeah, okay, I'll keep you in the loop and I'll let you know." So, because leading up to that, I had decided I wanted to do more. So I went and did my Cert 3 and 4 and fitness and personal training and stuff, and tried to educate myself a bit more in that piece before going over for the seminar, and really enjoyed it. And then, but unfortunately that never came off. So I didn't get to do anything with Hugh Jackman, but it would have been cool to be a part of that if that did happen.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. I've listened to a few of your shows where you interview other people, but it always gets me when the guest is a big deal themselves. I know you're such a humble guy that might not sit well, but you're interviewing the captain from the last time.
Bill Bestick.
Yeah, Bill Bestick, the anaesthetist. I didn't know Bill.
Yeah.
Before my time. And as a podcast host, interviewer, you're focusing on them, and you're so humble about yourself. that I think would lead into, I've literally got 3 or 4 questions, pretty short sort of.
I've got some questions for you too, brother.
Oh yeah, I'm in. Right, I'm going to cut to the chase. Mistakes and how to learn from them. The reason I thought that led in here is when I met Nick Caldwell from the Miller Gym.
Yeah.
I rolled in there pretty low key to a course he was running, and then in the break we sort of got to know each other. You know how it rolls.
Yeah.
And he was a bit surprised, I think. And we talked about you, obviously. And what I liked from him was he said, we fell out, but we've got over that.
Yeah.
And I know when I think you were speaking to a guest, or maybe in the one where you were being interviewed, you talked about that a bit as well.
Yeah.
That's obvious. I'm not sure if that's a mistake, but you obviously learned from that. And it's beautiful humility, Joe, to take away the ego, and you guys are good guys, and why not get a relationship? So that, I think, frameworks. My question is, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
You made some. That's how you got here, and how to learn from them. So yeah, let's frame that up as, how do you learn best from your mistakes and then move forward?
Yeah, nice. That's a great question, Damien. I don't know that I've got that figured out personally, or sorted, but what I can say, for me, at least anyway, in my journey, it's taken a heck of a long time to work through and to try to make progress on the mistakes that I've made. A lot of that has involved a lot of reflection, self-reflection on myself, and ownership of the mistakes that I've made, and try to get clarity around that in terms of, okay, look at it more objectively from somebody else looking at both sides or multiple sides if there's been more people involved, and then trying to pick out and focusing more on what I did and or what I didn't do, rather than looking externally like they didn't do this and they didn't do that. And that's been really helpful for me. It definitely hasn't been easy, because the easier route for me in the past anyway has always been to look at, well, it's their fault, it's their mistake, it's their weakness, it's never me. so it's been a big learning curve, and so I'm really grateful for that. Coupled with that as well, it would be remiss of me if I didn't acknowledge and mention, so my wife has really given good counsel over the years. Many times I haven't listened to it, I haven't been ready or in the space prepared to take it on board. So that has been, but it's always stayed there. It's always been in my mind, or it's been in my heart, and I know in the moment that she's right, but I'm too stubborn and pig-headed to acknowledge it at that time.
And ego gets in the way, doesn't it, man?
Yeah, 100%. And it definitely has for me, still does to this day. But I like to think, and part of the podcasting and all that sort of stuff, one of the byproducts, or one of the positive byproducts for me, has been an opportunity to understand myself better, but to let that stuff out and to let it go. And by doing that, man, I'm just in a much better place, much better more better equipped to see the good in people. And like coming back to Nick and I, when we fell out, but we did reconcile long before the podcast that we did recently. It was really good that he was able to forgive me for walking away, because I'd left them and because I wasn't happy with what I felt was happening or should have been happening. And so that the fact that he was able to forgive me, and that we were able to literally hug it out and then move forward, has always been great. And then, like he touched on when I was speaking with him, he mentioned something which always resonated with me as well. And I always felt the same thing. Like, I knew his heart wasn't, he wasn't a bad person. We just didn't agree on a couple of things. And at that time, I was too immature and naive to be willing to come to the table and hack it out, like to talk about it properly, like the way that we should have. Whereas if we were still serving in the unit, that's exactly what happened. You hacked it out and you didn't leave until okay, cool, I understand where you're coming from. All right, good. I won't go through the door that way this time, or I won't cut across, or make sure you don't, or I'll make sure I place that charge correctly, or whatever it is. We would have come to a resolution, but I guess I lost sight of that personally as well. I lost sight of that. And so learning from the mistakes to try to come back to your question, still a work in progress for me, but definitely loving the journey and the progress of that, and learning more about myself, in the hopes of, if I can improve myself in some way, I can hopefully be able to contribute better to, whether that's in my day job, or whether that's with my family, or whether that's in the community in general, and or through the podcast and what I'm fortunate enough to do. So yeah, there's been some tidbits that I've taken away. There's a heck of a lot more, but I would love to hear your thoughts and stuff as well, and get your perspective, from the exact same viewpoint and question, in terms of what you do, in terms of any mistakes that you've had, or that you've found, or that you've been involved in, and how have you been able to navigate that? Because it's difficult. I know I've found it difficult. I still find it difficult, and so I think it'd be worthwhile for people to hear your perspective as well, given your career and the diversity that you have, and including the things that you do now, because it wouldn't be easy. The eating well, sleeping, and the stress stuff that you do, the combination of the work that you've had in the police force and the special forces of the New Zealand SAS, and just the relationships, connections that you've built over time. I imagine in my head, and you can correct me if I'm wrong when you go through and explain, but I imagine it would be very difficult in a number of those cases to build and form certain relationships, given your SF background, because the relationships are very different, I've found, from police, from civilian street in particular. And it would be great if you could speak about that. Have you identified any, I guess, learning moments for you in terms of the mistakes that you may have made that you'd be willing to share and talk about on here?
And when someone turns around a tough question, we're both grey and old, but when does this wisdom kick in, bro?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because you spoke, I'm 48. How old are you, Joe?
I'm 43.
Oh my gosh,
I'm 43.
baby.
Yeah, still young. Thank you. I just don't look like it.
Oh, haven't we lived a life? But yeah, that's a tough question. I'll try and answer.
Yeah.
Thinking back to what you said, going through the door, placing the charges, all those things, I think that's easy because it's a single task. In fact, in the special forces, they're very simple tasks done very, very well and exact. And that's not easy when it goes to life.
Yeah.
You said you'd hack it out with the guys, or if it was Nick in the unit for that job. But hang on a sec, this is a business, this is a decision, this is a relationship decision, whatever's a career change decision. That's not simple. It's definitely not a simple task. And I don't think you can hack it out like that. I just want to, for those that are listening, and I know you've got a bunch of Kiwi guys, I want to be very clear on what my role was in the unit.
Yes, please.
And then I'll come back to answer your question, just so that we're clear.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'm all the time. In 2005, there was a new selection for a new squadron, which is the Counter-Terrorist Tactical Assault Group Squadron in the unit.
Right. Yep.
The black role, as a lot of people are aware of. They needed to raise that squadron because that capability was going down because of the guys leaving for the circuit. So 2005, I was the original one of the original guys on that selection course, and passed that course. And I served back then as a counter-terrorist operator, and they moved on to call themselves commandos now. So I wasn't a badged New Zealand SAS green role operator. Just want to be clear on my role there.
Okay. Yep.
Now, mistakes and how to fix them, man. The thing that stands out for me is ego and trying to remove that. And we can't fix the past.
Yeah.
I do wish I wish I'd listened to people at certain stages. And I wish they'd literally done what I want to do. People is grab them and say, listen here.
Yeah.
This is a good idea or this is a bad idea. But it's much what you said, self-reflection, so analysing it, but you got to take the ego out of it, because you and I are fighters. We will organically and naturally jump to action.
Yeah.
And that's pulling the trigger on maybe a bad decision. If you don't take the ego out of it, which then brings in emotion and all those other things, we might make the wrong decision. you're very lucky, Joe, to have had such a sounding board with your wife. But as you said, sometimes you weren't ready.
Yeah.
I think how to learn from this is just to be more and more ready and receptive to counselling, be that your wife, be that your peers, your partners, and so on. I learn from these as you do. I learn from people wiser than me. And in regards to the past, because there's a lot of veterans listen to these shows, and I hope that one little thing helps someone out that's listening to it.
100%.
John McPhee, he's an interesting cat, and his thing is to let it go.
Yeah.
The past is the past. As much as I want to hang on to that emotion with it, because you get all those chemicals go off and endorphins and so on, you got to let that stuff go, and then look at what chapter you're in. What chapter of life are you in? And I would imagine, please correct me if I'm wrong, you still imagine yourself with an M4 hanging off here and some armor and things. You still imagine yourself as that guy.
Yeah, I do. That's true. I still feel like in my head, I feel like, I can do that job. If push comes to shove, or if something happens, I can do that job. Whether or not the reality is true, I don't know.
So we can, but we're not there because we're in our houses surrounded by peaceful people. So I'm not saying I have, I'm not saying I can, but we've got to let it go and realize what chapter of our life are we in now. I'm in the family life. I've got 3 kids to raise, one of my own. I've got a partner to help grow and partnership with. I've got to not bring the SF mentality of the unrelenting pursuit of excellence and lay that on others, Joe. How hard's that, man? Because we're surrounded by the team, right? And that was, I love the team. It was different than the Sabre squadrons. The team was an animal, and we get things done that are literally physically impossible for others there. But we can't lay that on others. So if someone comes in that can do the job, an example is a qualified firefighter. I go, awesome. Somebody said you're qualified. That's it. Don't care who you are, black, white, girl, guy, transgender. If somebody said you can do the job, you can do the job. I don't lay on my ability to do the job, my expectations on them. I try very hard not to, and I've been successful enough not to do that in the fire brigade.
That's awesome.
That's good. But how to learn from mistakes, man? Mistakes hurt, eh?
Yeah, they do, bro. They do. But I think also they grow you as well. And it's safe to say, just from listening to you, there's a heck of a lot of growth that you've experienced. And I know for me as well, I've been lucky enough to experience some really good positive growth. Not always easy, but and sometimes painful. But certainly it's growth nonetheless, and it's helped people like yourself and I, be able to be more aware of the chapter. I love that, the chapter in life that we're in right now. And I'm aligned with you completely on that. I'm a husband and father, and I get to work in a job that I really enjoy, supporting, caring people that I really care about, and trying to be a positive contributor in the community, which is something that obviously you continue to do in the service that you're doing as well as a firefighter, and training and helping those that come through. So yeah, fully aligned with everything that you've just said. I love that.
Thanks, man. I would like to advance on that question with you, and hopefully take you to what's not a dark place now, but it's how we met. And you probably don't realize, but you're the reason I stopped drinking.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't realize that. Okay, go. So, you need to fill me in a bit more. So
you and I met in a bar in, was it Darwin or was it Sydney? Must have been Sydney, because you were talking about the commandos.
On the East Coast. Yeah.
So I'd done an exercise I was with the reserves, what they call them here, or the TF. And we were over there at Twerk exercise finished, and I met you in the bar, and I bought you a cup. I bought some cans of beer over, and one was for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been drinking.
No, and you said, I think you said, bro, in a very, very nice way, bro, no, I don't drink. and surrounded by army guys. And I was never a big drinker in the army sense, but it was strange. I went, oh, how come? And hopefully I asked that in a okay way, because you started telling me the story. And that's how I heard your story being interviewed when you just finished the CQB phase of Cycle.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. So from my end, it was just an intriguing thing. I do a bunch of interesting things sometimes, and I thought, oh, well, I'll just give that a go. So I stopped drinking for 2 weeks. I went, okay, just 2 weeks. And I've got that bodybuilding and dieting background, which is weird. It did give me self-discipline. And then I went, well, I've done 2 weeks, I'll do another 2. Then after 4 weeks, I went, well, I'm not going to mess up 28 days just for one drink. And it kept on going, Joe.
That's awesome.
And now I'll have a drink with some friends. I use the reason why you stopped at that time. You want to be with trusted friends that can keep you safe and you keep them safe. I'll have drinks with them, and when we go back for reunions and things. But yeah, it's been, I think it was 2000.
Wow. Yeah. It would have been. Yeah. That's awesome, bro. That's so, that's nice to hear, but yeah, certainly not a dark place to try to expand on that. Yeah, I don't remember the exact words of the conversation that you or I might have had at that time, but I do recall I was sharing that openly with people that would ask me, because I did have lots of people that would kindly offer, and sometimes, like, you did rock up with a drink already in their hand. Here, bro, I got you one. And I was like, oh, thanks very much, but no, I don't drink. And it's quite interesting. I didn't talk about it in as much detail in the interview that I did with my brother-in-law, but that night, and you're right, like the timing of it, when that incident happened with the gentleman that I had the altercation with, was not long after the CQB course, and you've just finished bashing each other during that course and taking a few good hits as well. And also that evening, I was already sort of not drinking, and I was already going to be the designated sober driver for that night. But I had a conversation with my then girlfriend. She's my now wife, partner, and didn't go very well. And I just, again, got upset. I was like, nah. And then one of the guys came over. He's still in, so I won't say his name. I'll call him Granddad because he'll know who I'm talking about. That's what we used to refer to him as in cycling. He come over, brought the keys. And I said, nah, I'm not driving. And I started drinking, and that probably didn't help. But yeah, I've reflected on that and just the decisions that we make in the heat of the moments and those things. And that was a bad decision on my part, not only for the result that happened with the person that I had the altercation with, but I know for a fact, had I not been drinking, I wouldn't have reacted the way that I did. Not to use alcohol as an excuse, like my immaturity and just being flat out stupid at that time is a big reason. But yeah, I look back and think, God, like I almost lost my whole career over that situation. And it was thanks again to being forgiven to a degree by this stranger who came along and put up his hand when he didn't need to. He didn't need to come. He didn't need to do any of that for me. So I don't know if the training officer and that had a chat with him, because it just seemed random that he's all of a sudden there in the courthouse on the day and at the time when my hearing's taking place. So I'm sure they did. So that's why I've never, as hard done by as I felt like I was leading up to the badging ceremony and all that sort of stuff, I know for a fact that the unit must have and would have been doing everything that they could to try to support me. The only difference being probably, I probably would have gone back if the conversation had been at the start of, you've stuffed up because you're a dickhead. We're going to send you back to battalion after this, whether you complete cycle or not. And then serve your penance, then you can come back on the next cycle and you've got to go through this again. If I had been told that, that would have been different. I would have been like, okay, yeah, cool. All right. Fair enough. I understand. But because the conversation was different, it was, and I guess maybe over that period of time, the people that you're on cycle and stuff with, things are going, I felt like without absolutely knowing, I felt like I was doing well. I felt like I was doing okay on the cycle. based on my being the junior soldier out of everybody that was on that cycle. They're much more experienced because I was able to learn from them, see what they would do, and I'd try to imitate it, see how they would patrol, I'd try to imitate it, see how they set their gear and pack their gear, and I'd go over and be nosy, where have they got that? Oh, where's their gear? Oh, okay, I'll put my gear in the same place. So I was learning from these guys, very experienced soldiers, and then applying that. Felt that if I could do what they were doing, monkey see, monkey do, that would help me and set me in good stead. But I know for a fact that the unit must have been, and they never come out and said that, the training officer, I almost said his name just then, but he never come to me and said, hey, we've spoken with this guy, we've been doing this, we've been doing that. Now I might be wrong, they might not have done that at all, but it just, there's too many coincidences for me to not look at that. And when I was talking about objectively trying to look at it from a different viewpoint, and seeing the good that they must have been doing behind the scenes. And so that's always stuck with me. But again, being so young at that time and then being told one thing, I just took it all in the wrong context. I didn't have that maturity or the gray whiskers then to be able to think, okay, well, hang on, people have, and they did tell me, they said, oh, listen, people have been sent back for doing less than what you've done. But again, all of that came after I had already been told, if I go through cycle, I complete it, you get badged, you go to a squadron, you're going to be under the microscope. So that's what I had wired myself prepared for. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do everything I can now. The pressure's off from the court setting. I'm not going to lose my career. All I need to do now is smash out the rest of these courses and then get on that broom and scrub the cars and sweep the floors once I'm there. So yeah, when that goalpost shifted, that's how I viewed it. I was like, yeah, no, you told me one thing and now you've changed it. So I think I mentioned I took it as a big up yours. So I tried to get them back. And so that didn't work. They just rolled on. So yeah, so that was that. But it was a great learning moment and experience, and something that I regret the altercation with the guy, but I don't regret the lessons that I've learned from it. All been sent away because of what I'd done, because they didn't close the door on me. I shut it on myself. Again, pride, ego, and but I'm grateful for where it's landed me and the things that I've been able to do as a result, people that I've met.
That's exactly what I was meaning with the question, the original question about mistakes and how to learn from them. I mean, obviously you're a crayon guy just like me.
Yeah.
100%. And as you said, if they told me that was the story, that I go back and pay my penance, be no problem. But life's not like that.
Yeah.
There's so many nuances, and especially when that was inside the military. Outside the military, which was real life, it's nuanced so much. And we've got to be able to learn from those mistakes how to apply it here, and maybe see all those different pathways, nuances, things. It's like I was saying, the military is simple, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And we make it complicated, us as individuals. I know I did, for me, with a lot of stuff, but it is simple. I do also like what Nick said. Just think of anything that you like to do. If the military gets it and turns it into a course, they'll make you hate it.
Oh, no.
It was a hard case. But one thing that he did mention was the freefall course, they couldn't ruin that. So he loved that. He goes, didn't matter how hard they tried, it was great. Jump out of the plane and then be under canopy and coming down. They couldn't ruin that.
Hey, we'll talk about courses. It's not on my list because we're sort of organically getting the answers to mine. But we've got New Zealand SAS Cycle and SASR Rio. What was your favorite? What was your favorite course of those two?
Oh yeah, favorite course of those two. You know what? I think for me, my favorite course of those two, in the New Zealand one, I enjoyed the parachuting, like just the basic roundy T10s, because I'd never done it before. So that was my favorite course on there. If I was to look back at it now and where and what did I get the most benefit out of, and development and growth as a soldier, as an operator, I would say the patrol procedures course and the CT. So we did ours sort of the reverse. We did the Black Roll stuff first, and then we did patrol procedures later, because APEC was happening in that particular time. So they needed, I guess, a reinforcement capability in case something happened. So we did Black Roll first, then the patrol procedures. So those two really helped solidify in my head, okay, this is what I need to be able to do. This is what being in this unit is about, and I need to hone these skills. So I took that with me. Going over to Australia, the course, this might sound weird, but the course that I really enjoyed the most was in Australia, was the combat survival and the resistance to interrogation phase in Australia. For the piece that it taught me, because I hated it in the New Zealand one, like that was new to me. The combat survival stuff phase I enjoyed, but then the resistance to interrogation wasn't. I can't say that I enjoyed that. I don't know if anybody does. So that's why I say it probably sounds weird in the Australian one. I'll come back to that. But there's a funny story which I forgot to delve into when I spoke with Mids. So our one, we didn't really have as much of the interrogation phase from our one for our particular group, our team, because one, when we did the agent RV contacts and all that sort of stuff, and then we were supposed to meet up at this last checkpoint, when the vehicle came in the middle of the night when we were supposed to get on, or we weren't sure that we were supposed to get on, we didn't get on. So we were there, we sat there, we were in location, but then the truck came back and was like bright as the day there in Waiuru, and the staff, I think, just got out and said, right, yeah, just get on the truck, just called out. So we all went running in there. So our interrogation phase, so to speak, was really short. Like it seemed really quick. So we didn't get the full, I guess, benefit or treatment like the other guys probably did. One thing I do remember though was that we had on the Hunter Force, we had these some of the Fijians there that must have been over, and they were helping out in the Hunter Force. One of the things I forgot to ask Mids, I asked him about it off camera and he remembered. I said, bro, you remember the Fijians that we had part of the Hunter Force Battalion? When we got dragged off the trucks, we're lying down, face down, our hands are down, and they're saying to us, bums up. And we're like, what the heck are they saying? Bums up. And we had no idea. We were still disorientated, tired, hungry. Like, what the? So we're lying there. And if you can imagine, we're lying with our hands splayed out, and we raised our bums in the air. Mids cracked up because he remembered that. So we're sticking our, and then we got cracked again. Like, palms up, and they grabbed their hands and they turned the palms over.
Oh no!
Their palms were down, and so then they turned the palms over so it'd be harder to get up, or whatever the case was. But so we figured out then they were saying palms up, but it comes out saying bums up. So we're sticking our bums up in the air. We're like, what the heck? But that was funny. So that piece, our resistance to interrogation phase, from what I remember anyway on cycle, wasn't that long, but the two key standout courses on the New Zealand one was the patrol procedures, black roll and patrol procedures. Back to Australia, yeah, the combat survival I really enjoyed, because the combat survival phase, different environment, different teachings. We had this incredible guy, Bob Cooper, quite renowned, like sort of combat survival type instructor, spent a lot of time with the Indigenous people in the outback of Australia and that sort of thing, taught us some really great skills and competencies that we needed to be able to apply, starting the fire from scratch and all this sort of stuff, just simple things, without a flint, without anything else, just your sticks and twigs and all that sort of stuff. And a whole bunch of other skills. But then that flowed into the resistance to interrogation, and the resistance to interrogation phase, at least at the time in the Australian one, was 72 hours. And you'd disorientate, you have no idea what the time is. But I really, and I mentioned to Brian, the only thing that course and those courses taught me anyway was don't get caught. For me in Australia, that's where it solidified for me. That's where it, to a degree, without it being 100% real, that's where things got real for me. And from a patrol perspective, or being compromised or being captured, that's the takeaway lesson. I don't get caught. So the 72 hours was quite funny, and why I enjoyed it, because there's a number of different things in reflection. The ICAT-Q, so they're just giving, I can't answer that question, and just giving the big four and all that sort of stuff. Is easy enough. I say easy enough to do in that course, in that environment where you know you're not going to have fingernails and stuff ripped off or any of that sort of thing. You get a few beats every now and then. But one of the things that really stuck out for me, a couple of things. One of my closest mates, he's still a partner of the mill. He started singing. I don't know what stage it was at, but we were all pretty much having some pretty serious, what do you call them, delusions or visions of things that were happening, he started cracking out singing. He's got quite a good voice. He sings a lot of Irish type music, and it sounded really nice. And I'm guessing the security must have enjoyed it too, because they let it go for a while. So he was singing. I remember that. There was one stage there where I guess they had got fed up with me at one stage during the different types of the interrogation stages. And I then got pulled out. And one of my good mates, I'll just name him as Youngie, they had him in a cage, stark naked, and they had this big, massive, high pressure hose getting ready to blast them with the water if I didn't give them any more answers.
Yeah.
So in that stage, they stood me there, and so they asked me some questions. I went through, just kept giving the same responses. So what would happen is, it was still the big four, but once I'd given it once or twice, to try to keep my wits about me, because I was mindful of not wanting to say anything else, I would give the big four once, and that was it. Name, rank, serial number, date of birth, and I would give nothing else. And they would ask me the same questions over and over, trying to wear me down, then chuck in another questions, but I would just stop. In that moment, though, they kept repeating and asking the same question. I kept answering it every single time, because I didn't want them to get blasted with the hose. I kept going. They kept asking the same question over and over again. So I kept answering it, and they didn't blast him, at least not while I was there anyway. So I was glad his back was to me, but he would have known my voice, and I knew who he was just by looking in the cage, and there's no way I wanted him to. So that he didn't get blasted while I was there. We didn't get to talk about it later as well, but that course, things became real for me. You get punched and smacked around and slapped around and whacked into things accidentally, of course, as you go through, but those were the two courses from the cycles, to answer your question, that I really enjoyed, and why I enjoyed them, what I took away from them. What about for you, bro, and the NZ one, and also with the TRG stuff?
I never went with the TRG guys. I got in contact with them, and they said, well, you got to be a cop first before you come and shoot and blow stuff up.
Oh, okay.
So I just became a regular cop. And you asked about the difference between the police and sort of SF. You did that in a roundabout way. Yeah. Here's the difference, bro. I was supposed to go on TRG selection at the end of the police academy. Police academy finished, say, June. Selection course for TRG, which would be fun, being in black and still being in Perth, getting paid a lot more. Yeah. Was in, say, September.
Right. Yeah.
Halfway through the police academy, they moved it. Rupert moved it a year later.
Oh, wow. So you finish in June. It wasn't going to be till the following year.
Yep. So I'm in blue in Perth, and I was only going to come to Perth for a year. RSM CEO said, no worries. I'm in blue in Perth. I'm going, and I paid off my debts. I came here for money. I paid off my debts. So
awesome.
So I didn't come here to be a cop. I wear black.
Yeah.
So I get on the phone to AJ, and bro, you no worries, sort it out. Come on back when you finish.
Yeah.
And we're at the police academy graduation. All lined up, big parade. Yeah. All the riffraff there. I win the awards. Get all the awards there. Everybody throws their hat. I just walk up to my it's like everybody has their sergeant, their platoon sergeant, their mother. Walk up to them and go, here, mate, here's my leave without pay. I've got stuff to do. See you later.
Is that right?
I gave him that slip, and I was on the plane like about 2 days later back to NZ and back in the team a couple weeks later. So that was my graduation. Like, the look on his face was hilarious.
I bet.
But I left for some personal reasons. I left the unit not long after and came back to Australia, straight back into police and started policing. But that was an interesting difference. So that I didn't end up with the TRG there. My favourite course, the Black Roll one, the counter-terrorist team, was very interesting. It was like your Black Roll, but really expanded.
Yep.
And what they did for us, Joe, they don't do it for yours, is they did phobia testing for a day.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we didn't have any of that. No.
That was a very unique selection, and I loved it all. I loved when you broke, because there's a breaking point there where you're I was in front of I'll just say his first name. He's out, and I work with him in ways. I was in front of Jamie, literally shivering, and
Yeah.
starting to pass out in front of him from hypothermia.
Yeah.
But there's a point where you break, and I believe, I'll ask you, so I believe there's a point where everybody breaks in selection and they realise they can carry on. Not very well, but they can keep going one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, definitely.
But I loved the phobia testing. So they test our phobia to fire, test our phobia to being drowned, test our phobia to heights, and all these things. It's pretty crazy. The fire one was cool, but that led on to I found out I really love jumping out of helicopters and high things and fast roping. But what I probably loved the most was the CQB, in a room, putting the charges on, going through the door and doing it really, really well.
Yeah.
And I knew I loved it when, 2 or 3 years later, you're doing headshots from the hip. Because you're not cocky, you're not arrogant. Your job, our role. I would assume you did, is to do a headshot with any weapon by day or night at 10 meters. So I was just performing my job to a highly professional standard, and I love that. I love that room clearance, that CQB. So that part of the course. I think it's actually one of the guys you worked with overseas on the circuit originally. That was the hardest course ever. We'd get up at 5 a.m. to hit PT at 6.
Yep.
Do PT because we needed to be at the gates at 7:30 to start. We finished about 10, 11, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, doing the method of entry, the explosive entry, and then the room clearance. And it got to the stage where the only time we could do was miss breakfast. And some of the guys are getting injuries. And I remember the PTI at the time, he's trying to get the best out of us. He's realizing we're skipping breakfast. He's going, I don't care what you eat, just eat some grass, just get something into you.
Just eat some grass, hard case.
But it was cool, man. It was so for me, it was some of the fast roping stuff, or swarm roping we call it in the unit, and definitely the method of entry and room clearance to do the job really, really well. Our job was to rescue hostages, and you did that by dropping the bad guys, and I love doing that. And working as a team. I mean, ours was all team mentality. When you go this way, everybody else has got all that squared away, and if something goes wrong, you can come in and save their lives.
Yeah, great points. Awesome, man. That's so good to hear. That's so good to hear. Man, that phobia, that sounds really cool, actually. That just hearing you speak about that, we definitely didn't have that. It may not have been cool at the time, but that there's some, that's interesting. You mentioned that. What did you learn about yourself, apart from you love jumping out of high things, or what did you observe that you maybe had a perception of others in your team that maybe didn't match up with how they went in their phobia testing side of stuff? Was there anything that stuck out, without mentioning any of the lads' names, but was there any of that sort of thing?
One guy got me through one thing, which is phobia to fire. So we went down the Navy shipyard in Devonport, and they throw you in. It's a burn room. I know what it's like as a firey now. Everybody, I think, has a bit of a phobia to fire. It's a natural fear. I mean, fire is pretty scary if you don't know how to deal with it. But this guy, before I went in, one of the lads taught me how to do a search, how to go in one door, not get lost, and come out the same place.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All you do, and hey, if anybody's listening, if this saves your life, please do it. If you go in through a door and you keep your left hand or your right hand, choose one, keep your left hand on the wall the whole time, snaking through, you're going to end up
backwards,
left hand out the door.
Nice.
That might save someone's
good
life.
Tip. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Good tip. I didn't know that.
Man, I didn't know that. And when they shoved me in this room and locked the door, and then there's flame everywhere, and they're saying, go and get out this other door. I was like, oh my God, this is the only thing I know. This very simple thing is keep my hand on that wall.
Awesome. Great tip.
Yeah, that was cool. Phobia about drowning. They shoved us in this, the Navy uses it for when they get holes in their vessels.
Right. Okay.
When they're trying to stop the leaks and the vessel's starting to go down, it's filling with water.
Yep.
And they I think there's a team of 8, and they said, go in and get the 2 hostages, rescue them. And they closed the door, and just as they closed the door, I looked behind and saw all this tear gas coming up, CS gas as we call it. And the instructor, just before he closed the door, you see this horrible smile on his face, locked the door, like, what? And then I hear this water's going like this. I looked, and I soon saw one hostage, one body straight there on the ground. It was a sand-filled dummy. Oh, they're great. That's that one. This thing's 2 stories.
Far out.
I've forgotten what they call it, but the Navy guys, they try and plug the leaks. Our job was to rescue the hostages. This thing was just filling up.
Yeah.
And we quickly grabbed that one, and then somebody knows which way to go, and I'm following them and going, let's get up here.
Yeah.
And we get to the next level, and somebody's looking for them, and the water's coming up and up and up and up and up, and you start to forget about the task, and you try not to die.
Self-preservation, eh? So something to think about. Yeah. Wow.
That was interesting. The answer to your question at the end of it is, I don't have a phobia for those things. I like jumping off high things. That's fun because you learn how to do it safely.
Yeah.
But it was pretty, and it taught you. Have you heard about flow state?
Yep, flow state. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's what you and I. Yeah, that's what you and I do. We do dangerous things. I would suggest you're altruistic, and I'm creative, and they kick up all the flow things. I remember looking up at Willie Apiata. He was a demonstrator on one of the things, which is, okay, watch this way for a demonstration. He's at the bow of this very high Navy ship, wearing fins, and he says, right, look straight ahead, cross arms like this, step off.
Yeah.
I was listening; those things were burned into my brain because they looked dangerous as hell. And
absolutely.
And when it's my turn, because you're watching everybody else do it, sometimes fail, which is some of the question you ask. You don't see them; they fail and they're gone.
Yeah,
you didn't look at them going, "I think you're going to fail." They didn't do the task. I got up there and I just listened to what he said was the 3 things again.
Yeah,
exactly those things. Right, I'm doing that. Boom. Oh, I'm alive. Okay, now I must swim. Don't drown.
It's hard, Case, to hear you describe that like that, because I think that's part of the misconception that, at least in my experience, that people have spoken about. They think people that serve in those units are nutters, or in the Special Forces community are nutters. And I guess if you look at that outwardly or from that external perspective, they're basing that though on what they are either comfortable with, whatever their risk threshold is, whatever they want to call it, versus what they see somebody else do, where somebody like yourself and I and the Willie Apiatas and many others that are part of those units, that's enjoyable, that's exhilarating, that helps us find that flow state and find, even to a degree, our value and our identity and our purpose and what it is that we're trying to do.
You nailed it there with value, identity, purpose, which is the real issue in transition. But expanding on that, it taught the whole course and taught me you can grip up yourself. The world, it's your decision. If you don't do it, you're probably going to die or kill someone else. But you have the strength and mental fortitude to do this. Which is very empowering, because we're not supermen. We're just like other people, but we just do the thing. And I'll finish off on those funny stories. I think it was Mids himself. We're up at this huge high rise. You would have done it. Huge high rise. Elevator doors are open, and the elevator's down the bottom, and we got these cables in front of you. And it was Willie and this other fella. And you got to reach out into the lift shaft and grab onto the cables, cable tied together, and then slide down them slowly. And you do get to hold onto a little piece of webbing tape they've got as a bit of a handle, but it's still a stretch. And he looks at me and goes, right, Porter, you know what you're doing, your stuff. And then just to drive it's pretty scary, just to turn the knife, he goes, you do know if you miss this, you will die. And what am I going to say? Your stuff. You will die. And so you lean out, grab it, and hold on and slide down. But he painted that picture really well. But the positive side of that is you can do it. you can save your own life and therefore save others, which is pretty. Most people, who else gets to go through that sort of reality check, Joe?
Yeah, that's a great point, man. Yeah, and like you said, I love the comment that you said you can grip yourself up and you can do that stuff. And it's not, there's not that there's anything special about the individuals, about you or I or anybody else that served there or still currently serves there. So that I think the misconception, sometimes people think that, and we might do it for a bit of a laugh, the special and theirs, like, yeah, well, that's because I'm special, mate. So, but we're not, Bill Bestick sort of hit that on the head, and I've heard you mention that as well. There's nothing special about those that serve there. We're just very, very driven, focused, and we're, I think, at least in my experience, everybody that I've had the privilege to serve with, or even speak with people like yourself that have served in those types of places, there's not only that unrelenting pursuit of excellence, but there's this drive to want to serve something bigger than ourselves, something that we can't articulate very well, but we know it's there. We feel it, and that's probably the easiest way for me to describe it. I can feel that there's stuff that you and I and others are capable of doing that's going to be of value and benefit to others. And not everybody has their own value and identity and purpose and what they contribute in this earth and in this world, but not everybody is capable to do those sorts of things that you've been able to do. And that's okay. That's all right, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can't do that many others can do.
Yeah, they could probably, they don't need crayons.
yeah, that's probably one thing. They probably, who are all the crayon eaters? Yeah, okay, we'll line those ones up over here. But that's okay. Hey, I wanted to ask you, sorry, because it's really interesting, your bodybuilding background. That's not a common thing, at least when I was going through it, was the perceived, okay, person in the unit is like probably big and strong. Then when I started to see a handful of people, I was like, man, that person's not built like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But how did you find with you having that bodybuilding background and obviously your passion for health and fitness, did you find that helped you in the physical aspects of your selection and all that sort of stuff and through the courses, or was it detrimental, or was it you didn't really notice it because you started to adapt your training, or did you start to adapt your training?
Oh, that's interesting question or questions.
Yeah.
Look, bodybuilding was my career ish, and it got me into the personal training side of things.
Gotcha.
And then I joined the military at 27 years old, I think, in the TF.
Yeah.
And what it showed me was I was just a real cockhead. I was very selfish, self-centered, which is the point of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And it did. Yeah, I was Mr. Pan Pacific. I was international title holder, but on basic training, and I'm sorry to go back a stage.
No, all good.
It didn't mean a thing.
Yeah.
Who cares about this how you look in a mirror? And it showed me, I mean, I love basic training. It was so hard. I didn't have a minute to think, which is the point, but it showed me, hang on a sec, you are this, and we need you to be this. And it got me some humility around me. I remember, you know how they say you're not allowed to take anything in? I snuck a can of protein powder in.
Did you?
And I thought so this is how stupid and how, and I mean that. I dislike the bodybuilding mentality. Nice people, but the mentality is just how stupid and self-centered they are. Like, that little can of protein powder will be my savior. That's your crutch. No, I guess, whatever. But yeah, it got me a bit of humility, starting to learn new things, which was cool. It's things I never learned before. But then going into selection, I'd learned all the army things. I'd learned all the good things there. And the one thing I do have from bodybuilding is self-discipline.
I bet.
Now, funny thing, Joe, unrelenting pursuit of excellence, human humility, which I love what you have. You show that all the time. The highest standards of self-discipline. I learned this year, discipline means to be a disciple. Discipline means to learn or to teach. It's both. And I did have self-discipline to train and train well for. It was a very strange selection. It wasn't what you guys went through, and I managed to get through that. I trained exactly to that and a bit more.
Awesome.
So a little bit more than that. So the mentality did it. But can I now give you another story about bodybuilding?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Because when I lecture for the gyms and health people and things, I always paint this picture. I was in the unit, and I think 2 years later, we were going to down, a few of us were on a course in Christchurch. So we're flying from Auckland to Christchurch. Well, in Wellington, there was a bodybuilding competition. Hadn't competed for a long time. I was like 35 or something, I'm not sure.
Yeah, right.
And there was a competition on. The Mr. New Zealand was in about 5 weeks' time. You have to qualify, and I could qualify in this Wellington thing. I thought, oh, maybe I could do that. So I started training really hard. It took me, started 3 weeks out of training, 3 weeks out of the competition. I asked my squadron sergeant major, can I get a connecting flight through Wellington, stop there for the weekend, go a bit early and do the competition and go down? He said, yeah, sure, go to the class and sort it out. I trained for 3 weeks, won the Mr. Wellington.
Wow.
It was kind of nice being on stage, but literally it was just a tick in the box. I had to do that to get to the Mr. New Zealand. And so the people around me had all the support staff, all their support crew, and they were cheering for the second and third place. And I didn't have anybody. I just turned up.
You. Yeah.
Okay, bye. I'll take the trophy and go off and go back to the hotel. And then did the course, training hard, not eating too much food, and then did the Mr. New Zealand on the Saturday 2 weeks later, weigh in on Friday, and then went and did the thing. And I had a friend come along, because a civilian friend. It was a client of mine from years ago, really nice guy. He came along and clapped me on. But again, with bodybuilding, you do the competition in the morning, then you do the presentation at night. Right. You'll come out, you do your posy stuff, and you have third place this guy, and a second place this guy, and a first place this guy. Awesome! I got the first place. They put the medal on, and then they start taking photos. And I did one photo, and there's a photo of me reaching down for the medal, and you get this can of protein powder. The protein powder follows me around. Get this big can of protein powder. I'm walking off as these guys are still doing all their posing.
Is that right?
I just wanted to do the thing for myself. I pushed myself a little bit. I didn't tell anybody in the unit. But what was really cool was I was in the mess at lunch, I think on Tuesday, walking along. I walked past the CO. What a cool thing our unit is. The CO's in the RSM, eating in the same place. Oh, Damien, congratulations. Oh, what? Oh, you did really well. Thank you. I didn't realize. I didn't have that big head. It didn't rule my life. It was just a thing I did. And I think I'd grown from the mistakes I'd had as a child. I call myself a child at 19, 20, 21. And it was fun to do. I'm sorry it's a long-winded way of talking about that.
No, don't apologize at all. That's great to hear, man. It's and you speak of humility, that stuff there, hearing about those and those experiences and what you've learned and gained and gleaned from those, and how you transition and apply those even to your life now. I never knew that about you. So that's great to hear. And I think it's also going to be really helpful for your listeners and that hear this, because I'm going to share this as well, to hear those insights, because there'll be people that will going to take away so much from what you've shared and the work that you do in this space as well. So I appreciate that, bro. That's great to hear, especially from, I don't know if it's so common now, but the perception, and obviously bodybuilding is a huge thing. It's a fantastic sport for those that do it, those that really enjoy it. I can see the reasons why it can be seen as quite selfish because of the discipline and stuff involved with it. But they're doing it, and I love how you did it. It was something for you that you wanted to do. It wasn't necessarily to get the accolades. Hey, it's great that you've won, but you managed to tick a box for you. And I think that's an important message for your listeners and those that we're lucky enough to have listened to the podcast that I'm lucky enough to host with my brother-in-law, is that you can do and achieve whatever it is that you want to do. If you are prepared to put in that effort and work, be consistent with it, and understand that those things are going to take some time. Like, you didn't get the guns and the legs and the chest and everything else just by putting in 3 weeks worth of work. You were you had done it prior to, you'd stayed consistent with it, maybe not to the same sort of level as what you were accustomed to before, but you kept enough to be able to do that. And you understood that time, I just keep doing these things, repeating them over and over again. And that's what I really admire and like about what you've just shared there, but also what you've continued to do and what you continue to do in your work today. So that's awesome, bro. Definitely don't apologize for that answer. That's not long-winded at all. Probably wasn't long enough, actually.
Well, I'd like to add one small thing to that, though. I trained for 3 weeks to win a competition. And actually, Joe, I wasn't even lifting weights. I started lifting weights. I started eating stuff. But what I did do was unit PT. And again, I teach this in my lectures, or to say this, that shows the athletic standard that the unit guys are in. Because I look around and these guys are in amazing shape, because you got to be physically capable to be able to go and save someone else's life.
Yeah.
It's just a reflection on how driven those people are to stay in functional shape.
That's it, eh? Oh man, that's such a great point. Functional shape. Yeah, I think that's one of the key things that I learned over the years, and probably one of the catalysts for starting the Mill Gym, just to go back there briefly, was the functionality and the functional aspects of that you gain and glean from doing that type of work, like you and your work as a firefighter, to the ability to not only the fireman's carry, but the awkward positions that you'll be in, the situations and scenarios that you may be in, whether that's a vehicle extraction, whether that's out of a building, whether that's off a ladder, whether that's, whatever that case might be, the functional aspect of it has been a great point. So yeah, that's awesome, man. To hear you share that and speak about that is great.
Thank you, Joe. I wanted to ask you one question, which was, you're a principled guy and you're strong-willed and you're very good at standing by your principles. You did that, back on cycle.
Stubborn, eh?
Yeah. Different chapter now.
Yeah.
Standing by your principles, learning from your mistakes, standing by your principles now. What drives you, and what forms those principles that you stand by now?
Oh, brilliant question, Damien. Far out. You get me thinking straight away, but in really good ways. So I guess to try to answer that question, incredible question again. My drive right now, with the things that we're doing, is aligned to what the podcast and stuff that I currently do. So I'll talk a bit about my day job and stuff as well. But the podcast, I find, is consuming a lot of my time, attention, and energy, but in really good ways, because the intent is genuine, and it's aligned with wanting to try to create a better future, not just for myself or for my family or for those closest to me, but for anybody that sees themselves potentially in their mind's eye different to the person that they see themselves in the mirror on a day-to-day. So I'll try and explain that a little bit. Part of what we're doing here, and I had this described to me by one of the guys. I just caught up with him recently, who's still serving in the unit. Had a good catch up with him, but he said, there's this picture of a person that's down in the bottom position of a deadlift, head and eyes up, looking straight ahead. And the person standing behind them is a person dressed and tooled up in all their SF gear. Same person, but dressed in that gear. Now, that person in their gym clothes and down in the bottom of the deadlift isn't that person yet, but that's who they see. That's who they visualize themselves as being. And when he shared that with me, I was like, man, that's hit the nail right on the head in terms of what creating a better future is all about. Because for every individual, it's going to be different. It may be the struggling single parent, mother or father, who's looking out a window on a dark, dreary day or rainy night or whatever, and catches a glimpse of themselves in the reflection, but sees a successful doctor or lawyer or business owner. It might be the person who's dressed in their day-to-day clothes, but they're standing, checking themselves in the mirror before they go to work in their office job, but they see a firefighter or a police officer, or a policewoman, or whoever it is. And that just really resonated with me. And I thought, wow, that's great. That's what we're trying to do. So with regards to the create a better future and the principles of that, as long as I'm and my brother-in-law are staying aligned and true to that constant theme, our purpose, our mission, our vision, our why, whatever people want to call it, to create a better future, then I know that we're in a good space. Part of that, and where I felt would be helpful, was this podcast, but getting particularly New Zealanders' versions, or not versions, their side, their lived experiences. And I felt, because even for me, even still to this day, I find the SF world and community, not only globally, but particularly in New Zealand, very, very interesting. Now, yes, there's the First Among Equals documentary that's out there and that sort of thing. The cameras have probably been allowed far greater access than they ever have been. But there's something really distinct, and Harry Moffat shared this in the interview that I was lucky enough to do with him that comes out this Friday. But he spoke about his very patriotic Australian, great guy, and he spoke about and held the New Zealand SAS as his top in his version, in his opinion. And that really caught me by surprise to hear somebody of his experience, his patriotism for Australia and that sort of thing, especially after they'd done us in the cricket as well, not so on. So, but he's a great guy. I never expected him to hear that. And I think, to me, it warmed my heart, even though I didn't serve in the unit here in NZ. I think it would warm the hearts of not only those operators that have served there or that currently serve there, but New Zealanders in general to know. And I think, I feel like there's a piece there that it would be great to somehow share in a respectful way that's going to encourage or uplift or inspire the next generation of warriors to come through. Because as you know and understand, once they started losing operators to the circuit or wherever it was, there's a gap there. And how great would it be if there's a resource through the lived experiences of people like yourself that have been there, done that, that are willing to share in a respectful manner without diving off into the whole bunch of the finer details and operational security aspects, but provides just enough, because there was nothing when we were going through, there was nothing out there. There was no First Among Equals documentary and all that sort of stuff. But just enough to inspire people. And I know that it works. I'm going to share this here because of the feedback that we've been getting in relation to it and how people are feeling a little bit more educated, but more so inspired and driven to want to do that. So I'm just mindful of that. Those principles, to come back to your question, are aligned with trying to create a better future. And how can we do that one person at a time, one experience at a time, one listener at a time? And how can we then encourage or foster it, whether that's a community or whatever people want to call it, or an environment where people feel safe enough to share those experiences, but then also know that they can share it with others, and that it might not be what Bob wants to hear, but his old mate John, he knows, is really keen on this stuff. Man, hey John, check this out. Like, have a look at this, see what the Straight Talk podcast is doing, see what Damien Porter's doing with his work here and the people that he's got on, listen to the insights about connection is the cure and all that sort of stuff with Pat McNamara and people that you've had like Nick and John McPhee and obviously Gilly and all that sort of stuff as well. There's some great insights there that can be helpful. And so that's what's driving this at the moment. And I can't see that changing for the foreseeable future. And I'm just lucky in my day job and the work that I do, I get to work with and support people that have intellectual disabilities. And that's another way whereby I'm fortunate to work with a great team of people to give back and help this particular community and environment to strive to live a life fully lived, because it is a piece of our community which sadly can be easily forgotten and or neglected. So I love what Bill Bestick shared, and I love what you're doing. Just to wrap up on this part here, is that people might think that SF operators are nutters, right? They think, they just want to go and they just want to kill people. It couldn't be further from the truth, in my experience. They're there for an intent, as I described before, this wanting to serve something bigger than themselves and trying to help other people. With that comes this reality that even as we transition out, we're still looking for ways to try to serve and help others. You as a police officer, TRG, SWAT, you with regards to the fire service, you creating this podcast to glean and learn from these guests and I'm lucky enough to be in that as one of the guests on your show now, but to glean from the various guests that you've had with so much experience with the intent to try to help and serve others, the work that you do outside, the move well, eat well, all that sort of stuff. We find other ways and we're more capable than we think. And I absolutely lost sight of that when I left the unit. I was okay for a while because I was on the circuit and I was in an environment that I was familiar with, that I felt very competent in. Once I left that, I was lost. But then realizing that, man, I can do whatever I want. And so that's been really helpful for me. And that's what's been guiding the principles and what I'm trying to do today. Sorry about that, very long answer, but I'm good at that. I'm good at giving long answers.
I've enjoyed listening to all the shows I've listened to with you, and repeat my interest straight away when I first heard you talking with your brother-in-law. Epic Aotearoa?
Yeah, Epic Aotearoa, create a better future. Yeah.
Who would have thought, sitting in a Scotland Lines, that we'd be out there helping, or trying, sorry, that's egotistical, we'd be trying to help others.
Yeah.
You know, you're sitting 100%. There, the armory is right there. You wouldn't think that, you know, in the next chapter, our job is helping others. And funnily enough, most of our job back in the day was actually helping others. You know, Timor was an example, hostage rescue for me is an example, all the things you're doing. And at its core, you're just helping your mate.
100%. Yeah, I agree. 100%. It's a great way to articulate that. And I think that's an important message that I like to think is slowly becoming more mainstream school of thought. But I know even from the interactions that I've had, people still have this misconception that we're nuts, that we're crazy, or that, hey, there's something wrong with Damien, or there's something wrong with Joe, got to watch out. And maybe there is, but I don't see that in you. I don't see that in the people that I've been privileged enough to serve alongside.
I reckon I can sum that up. It might be interesting. I wonder if you might not have seen it because you wouldn't have done unit PT. Oh, you would have obviously in SASR. I say to people, we're not right in the head. It just blows what you're saying out of the water, but let me come back. So we train like Olympic athletes. We think it's just what we do, but I'm lucky enough to interview a few people at that level, and we do train like Olympic athletes. So the PTI, his job is to hold us back, just like Gilly was saying at the All Blacks. He literally has to pull them back. And I get that. So I remember one day, Scotty is his name. He's okay, guys, we're doing a recovery run today, which is around the block. Recovery run, 5Ks, nice and easy. Recovery run. Yep, no worries, Scotty, you got it. We're all going for a recovery run, chat. Oh, Joe, we haven't seen you for a while. We're chatting away.
There's no such thing as a recovery run.
Just one guy wants to push himself. Doesn't want to push anybody else. He doesn't even think about anybody else. He just wants to push himself. So he starts pushing himself. Oh, what's he doing? I'll keep up with him. He ends up a 5K bloody sprint to the finish. And the PTI is pulling his hair out. And that's why we're not right in the head, because we push ourselves.
That's a great point. That's a great point. You have summed that up. Yeah. And that's probably what they're meaning. Yeah, but actually, I think some of it, like the way that you've just articulated that, makes sense to me. The way that I think a lot of people that haven't been in that environment, when they're using the not right in the head or there's something wrong with them, they're probably thinking some of the other stuff that isn't probably aligned. But the way that you've just described that, hopefully that clarifies that for people out there. Yeah, we're not right in the head, but that's because of what you've said. We push ourselves. Yeah. It's not because we're, nuts or belong in a psych ward sort of.
I love pulling quotes. I pulled the quote for chapter from John McPhee, but I can't pull the quote. But if we didn't have the mentality what we have, we wouldn't be able to help people. I remember we had an elderly woman in a car crash a couple months ago, flipped a car, scalped herself, blood everywhere. If I wouldn't, and that's painted a picture that I know some people we straight away having a visceral response to. Yeah. If I had a visceral response, or I suggest, aren't wired the way we are, I wouldn't be able to help her get into the ambulance, get out of the vehicle and get her safe. So we're wired that way to help someone else. And I've never told this story. Jess and I have just been on holiday for a few days in a little resort. We're not rich. It literally was our 1 year small holiday from the kids. But I was down in the little resort gym, and and there was three of us, a guy on a bench press, sorry, a 29-year-old male on a bench press, probably a 19-year-old female on the other side of me. And I was doing exercise here. He was about 3 or 4 meters away from me, and the bench just goes crash. I'd never. What had happened was the pin had given way on the incline and it snapped down. He's trying to do the bench press. Without knowing what had happened, I dropped what I did. I moved towards the sound, and then I looked what it was and assessed what it was. And the first thing, he was embarrassed. I said, "Are you okay?" I don't care about embarrassment. I just wanted to make sure it's okay. She made a noise that was almost a bit of a laugh and a bit of a, "What are you doing?" It's not deprecatory, but I moved towards a sound of something happening. I moved towards a sound of danger in order to help him. Now, I'm sure that's what you would have been doing on your missions, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great example that you share, that's not all wrapped up in camouflage and guns and bullets and stuff. That's an everyday type scenario that any person can do. I say that to any person, because anybody, in my opinion, has the ability to do that, but not everybody does. So you did, with whether that's because of the way you're wired or whether that's because years of training and discipline and that desire to want to help people. Who knows? It's probably a combination of all of that, but anybody can do it. But not everybody does. And I find that really interesting in what you've just shared. And also, just as you were speaking, for some strange reason, this thought or quote, I can't remember who said it, popped into my head, but I think it was sort of nice in terms of the questions that you've asked me and some of the stuff that you've shared so far, was around this transition and change and the difficulties in that, because there has been a lot of difficulties, at least for me anyway. And one of the quotes that I like was, "You either hate losing enough to change, or you hate changing enough to lose, to continue to lose," words to that effect. And I thought, oh man, I'm sick and tired of losing. I need to change, and I need to look at myself and what am I bringing to the table that's causing this friction or tension, or that's causing my inability to progress. And hopefully, like many of the things that you've shared, I've been taking a few notes and stuff here just as I've listened to you speak. They not only help me having these interactions with people like yourself. Now, they don't need to be ex-SF operators. They could be anybody. But those little nuggets, if they can help me, I can't help but think they will help somebody else that will take the time to listen. And that's the intent, that's the hope, and that's what I feel come through yours. So I've gone on and done a heck of a lot of listening to the interviews that you've had on your podcast. I subscribed to your channel and stuff on there on YouTube, and that's been great. And I've taken away stuff from all the guests that you've had, and it's really helpful, because I mentioned podcasting, or listening to podcasting was what has sort of really helped me dig me out of a hole that I was in, coupled with my wife, obviously. But that stuff and what you're doing, I think, is great. Should be absolutely more of it. Please continue to do it. And I think also, I don't need to say that, because I think you're just wired that way. You're going to keep turning up and doing it anyway. It's just how you are, and we'll find a way to keep it going, to keep the momentum going, whatever that is. There might be times where it's a bit quiet, where people may not be receptive to wanting to come on. That's okay. And we've had some of that already with some of the guests that we've extended invitations to, my brother-in-law and I. 100% okay with that. We're just going to keep rocking up and keep doing what we're doing, because we know that it's helpful, and I know that the stuff that you're doing is helpful. So appreciate you very much, and just wanted to acknowledge and mention you, Damien, there, and thank you for that.
Same back at you, Joe. Thank you so much. It's rare. I was really excited. I said at the start that we get 2 interviewers, because I've never had a conversation like this, and it has been such a great vibe. But funnily enough, after all that, some questions back and forth, some answers. What's been nice, and not having to think 3 steps ahead as an interviewer, is where it starts. Just having a conversation with a mate. If someone's listening, they don't have to get on and interview someone. They can listen to this and get something awesome, one little tidbit, but just talk to a mate, because that's and Jamie and I talk about this all the time, a high-end operator, very experienced.
Yeah.
Just talking is so important. It doesn't have to be a deep, meaningful conversation.
Yep.
We just started chatting before we started recording. It's important, and SF guys, firefighters. I love how firefighters can deal with things because we see some bad stuff, but if we're clever, we look after each other by starting to talk. It's not okay. Let's get it out. It just organically happens.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I think if you've listened to some of the shows, everybody there has a similar sort of theme.
Yeah, and they share a lot of similar things as well. I noticed particularly with your Pat McNamara and John McPhee. Is that the other guy?
Yeah.
Very, very similar. But it's also interesting, not only listening to them. Now, there's a couple of American guys, and I've listened to British guys. I hear you, and I speaking with Kiwi guys, how very similar we are. There's a lot of very similar traits that drive that desire to want to not let not only yourself down, but not let your mates down, not let each other down. And those just really resonate with me when they're speaking. And one of the ones on Pat's actually, when he spoke about the connection, what you've just sort of touched on there and expanded on, even the need to stay connected and reach out and speak with your, whether that's the guys that you've served with or whether that's whoever it is, somebody. For me, I feel like it's been easier for me to connect with people like yourself, and people that I know that have walked a similar path. And so somewhat selfishly, that's been really helpful and healing for me, but I've openly shared that on the podcast as well. It's been great for me to connect with guys that have served and guys that I haven't worked with. So particularly the New Zealand guys, I've worked with a handful, been lucky enough to work with a handful on the circuit, but never within the unit. So to hear their insights and the stuff that they've gone through, like yourself, and what they've been able to do and accomplish after, and all the struggles that they've been through in between, is really insightful, and it's powerful that people need to hear. Like Mids shared, a couple of marriages gone through. Not that he's trying to rack up a score, but that stuff is important for listeners or people. And it reaffirmed for me my thought originally at the start that it's a single man's game. Now, whether or not it's still that, I don't know, but that's still the perception that I have. So if people are going to step into that and they want to step into that, like, here's some information, here's some knowledge that you can hopefully maybe apply. At the same time, there's successful marriages. It's not all doom and gloom that do make it. Harry Moffat, 26 years married, 18-month period where there was 14 months of that he was away. Marriage is still going strong. He's got a beautiful wife and their children. It can be done. It's not easy, but it can be done. And so there's so much information, glean from and grab what they can and utilize it and apply it to try to create whatever that future is, a better future, a great future, a fantastic future for themselves and those around them.
That's a perfect segue. I've never used that word in a podcast. Thanks, Ben Greenfield. Perfect segue. He's funny because he's homeschooled. Sometimes he doesn't know how to say some words. They say, right. He might say segui because it is homeschooled. But perfect segue into something Pat said, not on the show. He does a live stream. Jess and I, so Jess, my partner, is ex-South African netballer and a triathlete.
Wow.
Do you know, Joe, it's harder for them, and I'm going to interview some All Blacks soon. So that's harder for them than us.
Wow.
Because literally the day they walk out of the changing sheds and they quit, it's going to be interesting. But going to what Pat said, I can't remember what exact question I asked him. It was just on this YouTube live. But connecting now with people, and there's guys in the unit you don't like. You do the job, and there's no problem. But
it ends there,
there's something there. You're not mates, but you don't hate each other. You're just not mates.
Yeah.
Well, he said in Delta there was a guy that reached out to him a little bit and said something, and Pat's, oh yeah, cool. It was a guy he didn't like, and he didn't like him. And then he did it again, and Pat then just had a light bulb moment. He goes, oh, hang on, this guy's trying to reach out.
Yeah.
And he got and said, oh, bro, do you want to go for a beer? And the guy just let loose. Oh, I'd love to. Great. It's been years. Pat was out in 2005, so it's been 15 years.
Yeah.
And when he had a beer with him, he said, that hatchet's buried, man. That was then.
Mm.
This is now.
Yeah.
And connecting there, and just going back to what you said, just bury that hatchet and connect.
Yeah.
And they got on like House of Fire, and it proved well for him. I really commend the guy for having the balls to reach out, because that's a huge step.
Yeah, that's not easy, man.
But what a cool thing it's not that chapter. We were that way then.
Yeah.
You didn't like the way that guy carried his gun.
Yeah.
Come
like the way his left button was always undone.
Yeah. And then Pat is wise enough now to be well past that. That's gone and buried, man. That was then, and we're going to have what we create now, which is, I said, the segue for creating a better future.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's a nice summary, and that's a cool story too, to hear that. I love that. I've been really blessed. I don't know about you. I've been really blessed. I can't think of any grudges that I have of people that I've either served with in the unit. So if I was lucky enough for anybody to reach out, that I would consider that a privilege. At the same time, there might be some people that might not have been happy with me. It could be a strong possibility, because I was quite, I was very judgmental at a lot of times. Like to your point, when you talked about to not place my expectation onto people, I did that day in, day out. I did that to my kids. I did that with my wife. I did that with everybody that I met, because of what I was, and if they weren't striving, and if they weren't driving like what you would do, like what those that I'd served with would do, then I would be thinking there's something wrong with them. Like, go harder, push yourself hard. Like, why aren't you? That's not right. Like that's crooked. You straighten that up.
But that's how we're trained, because we're looking for mistakes so we can do our job really well. But we got to remember now. Look, it's easy to say, because I almost started this conversation saying, you look in the mirror, you can see yourself with the M4 in the body armor.
Yeah, it's
easy to say, but I guess, Joe, the more we say it, and we know that's how the subconscious brain works, the more it's going to become our chapter, our reality. Yeah. But I'm the same. I loved everybody that I served with, but I was a bit of a dick. And I try to roll that back as well as I can and present a better version of me, and then a better relationship as well.
That's awesome, man. I obviously I didn't experience those aspects of what you've just described there, but what I do see from my side, Damien, as a genuine person who's trying to give back and help out as many people as he can. And I think that's a fantastic thing, brother. And I'm just very privileged, grateful that you would invite me and have me on your podcast, and that we can have this conversation, and hopefully it helps somebody. Hopefully it adds value to somebody's perception or life, or hopefully it helps clarify some of the stubborn ways that I had. Because I guess if I could share one more story, have you got time?
I'm good, man. I've made sure I've pushed that one off.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. So this one here is just more so, I don't feel like I acknowledged the Australian regiment and the mistakes that I made when I decided to leave there. I sort of glossed over that. I talked about, I didn't leave on the best terms. Same way I chose not to go back to the NZ unit. I could have handled that better. I could have, because I did want to do the New Zealand, the Australian, the British one, and then go back to NZ. I never thought I would ever leave the army. I thought the only way I was going to leave was either I catch it or suck it on an operation, or like, you're too old and crusty now, you got to get out, like they're going to kick me out. But anyway, so those things I could have dealt that. I could have just gone back, and then I could have still done the Australian one. The interesting thing was with my wife's one, she forgot to mention, I didn't even give her a second thought. Like when I was going to Australia, after I got sent back from the NZ one, I was like, I'm going to go do the Australian one. I didn't ask her. I didn't say, how would you feel about coming? How would you? Ooh. I was like, I'm going to Australia. Thankfully for me, she never, really grateful for, she never questioned me. She just said, oh, okay. She didn't say, but I don't want to, or anything like that. She stuck with me. And I think she found her voice though in Australia, I feel, because I come back, we were talking about it the other night. She remembers me coming back of a task or job. And then I said to her, I think I want to go to the UK. I want to go do the UK one now. And this must have been maybe 2004.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I want to go to the UK one. I want to do that one now. And she goes, well, yeah, you can go, but we're going to stay here. She goes, we're going to stay in Perth. And I was like, oh, I felt like Bill Bestick in his interview when the lady asked him, so do you think everybody wants to be trained the same way as you do? And he's like, well, don't they? And so when she said that to me, I was like, oh, and I was lost for words because I was like, she's always come with me. She's always just said, yeah, okay. But yeah, she didn't want to. And then that put the brakes on for me anyway. Could I have still gone? Yeah, I could have. But at that time, I think time apart in NZ, then coming to Australia where time apart, she's still in NZ. Then I go over to Perth just as she comes to Sydney. Then we're going to stay apart again till I complete it. Then she can come over. Then when she comes over, then I'm away all the time. And so then by that stage, yeah, I think I maybe started very slowly to mature a little bit and start to see a bigger picture forming. So anyway, I didn't go. But those lessons with regards to the unit and deciding to turn away, if I could share this with anybody, because I'm sure there's going to be other pig-headed, stubborn, prideful, egotistical young people that will come through that unit like I was. Once I was there, I saw nothing else. All I saw was, I'm here now. Put me on operations. That's why you've invested this money. That's why I've done all this training. That's why I'm here. So that's what I've signed up for. I didn't sign up for you to send me off to the Eastern States and go do a subject course for promotion. I don't care. But if I could share any bits of advice, like my leaders, my squadron OC, my squadron SSM, my troop sergeant, wonderful, wonderful people, just really good men. Even the CEO who I got upset with when I got given the notice that I had to show cause. They were doing it for the right intentions, but the army is a different beast. You need to toe the line. And I lost sight of that. You need to toe the line and do what is asked if you've signed up to volunteer, or you either go, well, stuff you, I'm out of here, which is what I chose to do. In hindsight, yeah, like I look back now, I wouldn't change it. But if I could go back and speak to myself as a 43-year-old, speak to myself at 20 years old, 21 years old, and speak to myself, I would want to do what you sort of mentioned here, grab myself by the scruff of the neck and go, pull your head in. This is part of the job. Go and do it, and you won't regret it. So yeah, I don't regret what I've done, but if I was to change and tweak things there, I would have liked to have left the beret in a better position than when I received it, because I know for me, I didn't, and I could have done a much better job of leaving that beret in a much better state than when I had the privilege of wearing it, of donning that thing and trying to do it justice. So I'm grateful for the time and the service that I had and the opportunity that I had to give everything that I had and everything that I could in my time there. But I know I could have given a heck of a lot more. And that was partly in my letter, in my young, youthful frustration and anger at the time when I was asked to show cause. I remember writing the words, and my troop sergeant said, we can't give this to the CR. I said, I put in there, I can guarantee you that I'll give you at least another 10 good years of work. You don't need to worry about promoting me. And I don't think it ever made it to his desk anyway. But when I had to show cause, I had to write this letter. And I remember putting those words in there because that's just how I was wired. But I also think that there's a place for people like young Joe that was in the unit at that time, because yeah, Joe may be dumb and stupid back then as he was, or more dumb and stupid as opposed to what I like to think I am now. But there's still a place. You can still utilize those individuals. They might come along and wise up a little bit down the track, or they generally will, because what I saw in my cohort, I couldn't understand. I saw other people in my cohort and I thought, well, they should be doing it. Like they're far better than me. Like put them on the course. Like don't worry about putting me on there, put them on. And, but I think over time, if that sort of approach, and this isn't going to change anything of how they do it, the green beast will roll on as per normal. But it's interesting as I've reflected and looked back, I would have adjusted and changed because members from my cohort would have gone through. I would have seen them come back. They would have been delivering instruction. Their communication, their confidence would have been the next level again. And I would have wanted a piece of that. I know I would have gone, that's awesome, man. If this guy from my cohort has come back and has changed and is doing this now, I want a piece of that pie. Like, I want to be able to do that and add that to my backpack of soldiering skills.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do that. So, but at that time I wasn't ready. Personally, I wasn't ready. So it's taken however many years to reflect and look back on that. But hopefully the younger generation, or the next generation, I should say, coming through, can take something from this and go, hey, just suck that up, that extra little piece. The reward is just around the corner, where you'll be back on jobs and back on ops. It's not just get there. There is that time where you do need to regroup, reset, recalibrate, and also gain a few more skills to add to the toolbox, which is going to help you as an individual, as those operators, and it's going to collectively help that team. So that's been a hard pill to swallow from a if only I knew then what I know now perspective, and what I could have done, and how I, to a degree, I know I feel like I know I did a good job whilst I was there, but I know I could have done an even better job. And so if somebody can take from my mistakes and the learnings that I'm trying to share here, and maybe I'm not articulating it that well, but if they can get the gist of what I mean, I guarantee and I'm sure that they're going to have such a positive impact on not only themselves, their family, their team operators, but that unit as a whole, as they come in ready to do justice to the bureau and the job and the roles that it requires, and leaving it in a much better position than when they have that opportunity to wear it. So
I think you articulated it really well, Joe. I'm glad that you did it in this public forum for yourself. I don't hope that comes across not deprecatory, but
no, not at all.
I did really listen to that part of your interview, and for those listening, go back and listen to the show. We'll put it in the show notes. It's brilliant, and I try and shows not to recap other ones, because you said it so well there, you can't recreate it. But that was a part that needed elaborating on, and the emotion and the context of which you painted around that here really summed it up beautifully. And not only that, you got the intent across of the reason you're saying that, because I do hope that future operators listen to these things, and if helps just one person get their head straight, then great, because it's best to go into that stuff both eyes open, knowing wisdom from the old guys, not just the old guys in the unit, but people that are out and so on. Just, as an example, Bill Bestick, turns out the unit and one of the Ruperts goes, well, I'm disappointed you're married. But that could be a good thing if he wasn't married. If the person went with both eyes open, he'd go, well, I've really got to look after the marriage, or actually really want to smash on this for 20 years. Let's not attach to it that's right or wrong. It's just a thing. And if you got both eyes open, crayons.
You make better decisions.
I wish I had those mentors. The only thing I can say is don't listen to your salt sergeant on matters of buying gold and investments. stick to other things. Because gold was $800 an ounce. And I say, I think I should buy some of that stuff. No good. And now it's $1,800. $1,800, But no, I think listen to those people and getting a wide range of information is really important. You articulated really, really well there. And like I said, I'm glad that you spoke about your time. I have something to add to that. I do think if you went on a promotion course in New Zealand, it would have been far different. Because it's smaller. I sense when we told that story originally in the original interview that the Australian Army is a big beast of anonymity. So I do think in the New Zealand military would have found it a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's a good point. Awesome, man. I've enjoyed having the privilege to be on your podcast. I guess from my side, what I'd like to ask you now, if it's okay, is just in relation to your transition, and have there been any parts where you found you really struggled? Like you spoke a bit about the police, and obviously health and wellness and physical exercise and all that sort of thing has been a big part of your life. So it's not really a surprise for me to know that that's the space that you're in and you're helping people, continuing to serve and help people that way. But have there been any, I don't want to call them not regrets, but have there been any really difficult challenges for you? Because it's not easy, like leaving the unit, leaving that SF community and coming into something and effectively being on your own, unless you've got, you know, your wife and all that sort of thing and your children and stuff there to support and keep us grounded. Even then, sometimes that's not enough. I know it wasn't for me.
No.
Have you had any of those experiences that you would be willing to share here on your podcast? But my question. Sorry.
Yeah, awesome. I love the host versus host. Yeah, look, absolutely some dark places. Much the same as when I interviewed GBRS, DJ and the boys, and all the stories. Transition, the bottom line is still, it's ongoing. I mean, I'm still writing the book. And I love what John said about which chapter of your life you're in. DJ summed it up really well. Everything you've done in the military, you did as a team.
Yep.
Team of 2, team of 4, team of whatever. And then for some idiotic reason, and I picture myself literally walking down St. George's Terrace with my bank account from the NZDF full. For some idiotic reason, we think we can do this all by ourselves on our own.
Yeah.
But it goes back to because we are competent operators. We can grip it up. We're self-sufficient. No, dark, man, is all I can say.
And so how did you overcome those dark places or some of those?
Look, I can say now, I haven't completely. I think it would be like an alcoholic. You are an alcoholic, you just don't drink.
Yeah.
I wasn't an alcoholic.
But,
you know, it's a work in progress. Some things, I came in 2009. Police was helpful because it's straight into a job, straight into police academy structure. I was trying to win the course, as you do. I had a reputation to uphold. So that was good, but the getting out of that and then into police itself was on the job was good. I didn't really have a dark moment there, but then the fire brigade was tough. Their training course was I was really going to put my aggressive side out there. The training course was paramilitary, and as you probably know, wannabes are worse than has-beens. And it was tough. And it was very tough for me not to lay my standards on there.
Yeah, I bet.
But going back to when you said there's a place for Joe Hortai, that guy, the young guy, there's a place for bullets. We call you guys bullets, and me. Run and don't see anything. And there's a place for I don't know what the names of these things are. They had names for all these individuals, types. I mean, we don't do that in the military. But there's a place for everybody because you form a good team. But the Fireys has 2 days, 2 nights, 4 off. So I've got 6 days free every 8. Free time's not good time because a man without purpose is lost. And for me, it's super bad. So it led me into some behaviors that aren't too clever. It led me into creativity as well, helping others with the health and wellness consults and things. But every single day, Joe, I woke up, wanted to go back to New Zealand, want to go back to the unit, and want to throat chop somebody. I'm painting an extreme picture for everybody else out there because I know you comprehend that. And there's bits where, I've forgotten about that. But looking back in hindsight, depressed for quite some time. And this is weird because what got me out of it was ketones. In 2015, ketones were invented for the Navy SEALs. It's a powdered drink, and it was to stop them from having an oxygen toxicity seizure.
Right.
On their rebreathers.
Yeah.
It can last 6 times longer. And that's why they were invented in 2013 for US Navy through DARPA. I started taking them in 2015 because I also heard that you got a bit fitter and a bit leaner with them. and that's some things. What is turned out now is they lower anxiety by 39%. And they do that by raising a chemical in your brain called GABA, which is a calming one. Sounds pretty good. And that was unknown at that stage. And I started taking those. And then also at whatever age I was, probably still older than you, right? I was still trying to lift and still trying to be that guy, but I was pretty sore. They lower inflammation. So if I paint the picture, it's not a sales pitch. It's literally what got me in the hole.
Yeah.
I'm sore, I'm depressed, and pretty angry.
Yeah.
But I can get up and do the job and be that guy in the role of firefighter, be that role in front of a client and teaching the things. But when I go back to my head, and I'm being as open as I can here, you'd go back to the dark place. And over a period of about 2 or 3 months cumulatively, I think there's one day I went, oh, this is okay. It was just okay. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't the grass is green. It was, oh, don't want to throat chop someone.
Yeah.
And that progressively happened. It gave me a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And then, of course, I did this self-reflection, a bit of all the mindset stuff that we would have used to get into the unit and do the job. We did that for actually trying to be a better human and create a better future. But that gave me a crutch out, I think.
Man, that's awesome. Did you seek any counseling at all, like professionally or anything like that?
So again, I got into a pretty dark place last year, just screwed things up a bit relationship wise. And I did chat to a counsellor, and really cool. And what that person said is ironically exactly the same thing Pat Mack said, and I think John McPhee and a few guys, definitely DJ and Cole from GBRS. In a roundabout way is a void. There's a void there. For us, I like doing dangerous things.
Yeah.
Jess was beautiful enough a few months ago. She bought me abseiling rock climbing day with Mick from Australia. His last name wasn't Dundee, but it was a cool. I was just straight down the rope, and she saw me. She's, oh, you just looked like it was just normal. I was like, it is. It wasn't scary, but there's a void there. And the counsellor or the psych was saying, we need to brainstorm some ideas for you to go and fill that void.
Yeah.
And otherwise you fill it with the wrong things.
Yeah,
whatever they may be. And that was really helpful. But having a team around you helps. I call my fire partner. There's 4 of us at station, 1 boss, 3 guys. Well, there's 1 guy that I buddy up with for 1 shift. The next guy I buddy up with. And connection is the cure. In whatever way it is, being like-minded or actually talking about things in particular, or it's important to have people around you. And it doesn't have to be tons. It might be your partner. It might be a mate, but you want to do it by yourself. And at no time, brother, in the military did you ever do anything by yourself. Look how many people tried to talk you into doing that course. That was your team.
100%. Yeah.
Does that answer your question, mate?
Yeah, it does, mate. It gives a really great insight. And the value pieces that I took out of that is a really good reminder, because my wife is always, she's very conscious of me and my behaviors and attitudes. And she's always reminded me, you think you can do it all by yourself. And I still, to this day, still feel like I can. But even as I reflect on it now, I take some positive from the podcast, from spending time with you here today and other things that have happened in the past. And I know 100% it hasn't been by myself. Like, it's been healing for me in many respects, but I haven't done it by myself. I've had somebody on the other end of the line to speak to, or I've had people that have heard the message and then have connected and or have asked questions, and they've shown and shared their support. And that's been awesome. Not that I've been seeking it, but it's more about what can I share now based on the mistakes that I've made to help others. But that's been nice to feel that support. And so then to hear you talk about that, that void is massive. I do remember Pat Mack saying that same thing of what you just mentioned in your discussion with him. but that void is hard to fill for a long period of time, and we can drag it out even longer, like I've made the mistake of doing, and like we do at times. But we definitely, I love what you've shared about, we don't do it on our own. We've never done it on our own. We might have felt like we were on our own at times, but we haven't been on our own, if that makes sense. So yeah, really cool to hear you say that and to summarize that so well, bro. Appreciate it.
Again, easy to say, Joe. And every time I say those sort of things, maybe it makes me grow a little bit more. But easy to say, but hard to do. Anybody that's listening, so that you've got to do it. Yeah, definitely.
I know actually the counseling piece. Reason why I've been interested in asking a few people that question when I know when they've shared that they've had some struggling times or hard times, is because I've never had the courage to do that. Like I put it down to, and I've justified it in ways of about, oh yeah, I don't want to burden them with my problems, and they don't want to hear this and all that sort of thing. But really, if I'm more honest and open with myself, as I was too afraid to open up to anybody else about that. Like, given what I've been fortunate enough and privileged to do, and you're right, serve alongside these brave, strong people that I've been fortunate enough to look up to and to be mentored by, even without them knowing it, they've in some way, shape or form have all mentored and helped shape me. I was just too afraid to, and even still to this day, I would still be too afraid. Like right now, I find this is easier for me at the moment. So maybe this is a stepping stone for me at some point down the line. But yeah, if I'm absolutely honest, and I think it's okay for, like, you've created such a comfortable space for me to feel comfortable to elaborate, like it's a safe environment for me to elaborate, and because I know that you'll understand. But at the same time, I'm sure that other people listening will understand, mate, there's nothing special about us. We have that unrelenting drive for excellence and the pursuit of excellence, yes, but we bleed like everybody else. We get scared about a number of things, maybe not the same things, or maybe not to the same level in a lot of ways, but we have fears just like everybody else. We love like everybody else. We hurt like everybody else. And the opportunity, the need, or not so much the need, but knowing that people, whether they're coming through, whether they're still currently serving now, or whether they've served, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to wear your heart on your sleeve, so to speak, and say, I stuffed up because I was an idiot back then, but I'm trying to do better now. I'm trying to create a better version, to use your words, of myself now, with the intent of trying to help somebody else. So yeah, those things, I think it's really important, and hopefully there'll be people, and I know there are, but there's people like yourself and others that have been far braver than I have been, or than I'm at this stage of my life, that are able to and have gone out and spoken to people that have been able to help them and support them. So that would be one thing that I love what you've just shared, that I would want to echo, that people take on board. Reason I haven't right now doesn't mean that I won't in the future. I don't feel like, and maybe I'm just blind to it right now, but I feel like I'm in such a good space and place. My family feels that, and I feel that within my family. I don't know if there's any counseling at this stage. I'm sure there will be down the line, but hopefully, like I said, this is a stepping stone for me to build up a bit more courage to that when that time does come, because it will come, that I might be willing to go there, which would be great for me.
Maybe I can just elaborate on that. And the reason I'm doing that is because I listened to Jason Fox's audiobook. Quick, I want to get him on the show, but a quick synopsis,
do it.
SBS, Afghan, Iraq, out on PTSD and went to go kill himself. Bad place. And I listened to his old story there. He used the word counseling. All I did was talk to a dude on a video call, which was super easy, by the way. Sorry, the whole thing was bloody hard, but super easy with a video call. But I just talked to a guy who's going to analyze where I was at and give me some ideas. That's what. So you used the word counseling. I didn't find off-putting, but some people might, because it wasn't descriptive. It was just, I was chatting to a guy, and he's like, okay, that. I told him the story, and then he started to throw some ideas there. So that's like anything.
Awesome.
That's how you handle a problem with a mate, right? But the hardest part, you said brave. Joe, you said we're like other people, we're not really special. The bleeding thing, yeah, whatever. The part you said would be hurt. We do hurt like everybody else. We are quite brave people, I think, in certain regards. But it hurts to tell your story because we're looking at that mirror. That's the hurt part and the bravery that it takes to get in front of a person and start. You're going cold. You're telling your story. Oh, this is where we're at. Oh, how can I help you today? Whatever. You got to tell a story from scratch, and you got to paint yourself. And it's the worst story ever.
Yeah.
But if anybody's thinking about counselling, it's just talking to someone, and they're going to give you some ideas on how to help. It's actually really it got easy. The story part sucked, man.
Yeah.
That takes gripping your stones up in your hand. I tell you, but that steps you up because change is growth. You know.
That's fantastic. I love how you just explained that, because when you just said that, that makes so much more sense. It seems it's easier for me to digest now because you've said you just had a conversation with a guy via the video, or person. It could be a guy or a girl, person via the video. And it's just a conversation. And when you put it that way, I think for me, my misconception about counselling, that automatically when I hear that term, it puts me off. It was putting me off.
Yeah.
Then, like counselling, I don't need counselling. But if you frame that, it's have a conversation with this person about and try to get some ideas. So 2 key points: have the conversation, get some ideas. Hit the nail on the head for me right now, just listening to share that. Thank you, brother. I know that will, and I hope that will help a lot of either veterans or people that might be in a difficult space right now.
Oh, me too, man. Me too.
Yeah. Brilliant. I'm just making those notes. Awesome. Bro, I've you got anything else for me? Anything else that you want to ask me or anything like that?
Oh, so much, Joe. I think we should come and do a sequel at some stage. It's just
Sweet.
it's just a nice chat, eh?
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
And so organic and so not tangenting off like we do in a normal interview. It's just all leading into things we can think of to help other people, help ourselves.
Yeah.
But look, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you for agreeing to come on the show and keep doing what you're doing. Your show is helping others so much. Help me, you know. I listened to you for 2 days while I was in the kitchen doing my thing. You and your brother-in-law.
We got sick and tired of hearing my voice.
No, bro, it's been great. Really cool to see you on the Kiwi side. And the same as you said, I hope this helps someone out there that listens to it.
Oh, thank you very much, brother. Well, yeah, absolute honor, privilege to not only reconnect with you, but to be on your podcast, to be in such of the, to be listed and counted, somewhat to a degree worthy to be amongst the great guests that you've had on your show to date, and no doubt many more that you'll have on your podcast, mate. The work that you're doing is awesome. The work that you do in your day to day, the fiery service and that sort of stuff, and what you've been through, navigated through, and got into the point of where you're at now. And who knows what's in the future. All I can say, brother, is that I wish you all the very best. I look forward to doing this again with you, and having a conversation with you, because I know what normally happens when I finish having a conversation. I hit the stop button, stops or whatever, we go away, and then I think of all these other things that come flooding in. But it's great because I'll be able to catch up with you another time. And full respect for what you're doing. Appreciate you having me on here, and wishing you and your family everything to go well with everything that you're doing, brother.
Thank you, Joe. Absolute same back at you. It's an honor, and I look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely, bro.
Awesome. Thanks, man.